Okay, we are going to we're going to review and practice some of the vocabulary words and phrases that we learned from Chapter 7 of David Copperfield, which we looked at just the other day. So let's just jump right in here and start practicing. Okay, let me see. Let me pull up the first word here that we have, which is to writhe. And writhing is kind of a movement like this. It's the movement you make when you are feeling pain. When somebody is hurting you, you writhe in pain. Ow! That's writhing. Let's take a look at, well, it's that movement, but it's usually used in the context of pain. So let's see. Let's take a look at how we can use this. Okay, here is a sentence which is the nurse administered an injection. The nurse administered an injection. Now let's change this to a passive voice sentence. And in other words, let's focus on the injection and not the nurse. An injection was, an injection was administered. Now let's make a what happened when question with that sentence. What happened when an injection was administered? Fabian Perez says, hi, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too, Fabian. Thank you for watching. So what happened when an injection was administered? And here's the answer. The patient moved around in pain. That movement, that's writhing with pain. The patient writhed with pain, or the patient writhed in pain. The patient writhed in pain when the injection was administered. Oh, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning, but that word writhe is more of an advanced word. So it's, most of the time we're dealing with intermediate level vocabulary words, but this is more advanced. It's a word and people use it and people know it, but it's less common than some of the other things that we talk about. Let's use writhe in a different way. Here is another sentence. The man caught the snake. The man caught the snake. Now let's change this from an active voice sentence, the man caught the snake, into a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on the snake, not the man. The snake was caught. The snake was caught. Now, let's make a what happened when question. What happened? What happened when? What happened when the snake was caught? What happened when the snake was caught? And here's the answer. The snake, that's how a snake moves. That's writhing. The snake moved until he escaped from the box. Or we can say the snake writhed out of the box. And then we understand he's doing this movement to escape from the box. The snake writhed out of the box. When the snake was caught, it writhed its way out of the box. When the snake was caught, it writhed its way out of the box. Okay, now let's move on to our next vocabulary word. Again, we're starting with some pretty advanced words. We have this conjunction lest. This is an advanced word. Again, this is from Chapter 7 of David Copperfield, and we talked about it the other day when we read the chapter. And this word lest is something that you put in front of a phrase when you want to name something that you're afraid of, something that you're worried about. So let's see how we can use this in a situation to show what I mean. Here's a situation. John The company had to train John in the new software. That's our situation. The company had to train John in the new software. Now let's change this from an active voice sentence to a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on John and not the company. John, so let's repeat, I'm going to repeat the active voice again. The company had to train John. The company had to train John. Let's make this passive voice. John had to be trained. John had to be trained in the new software. John had to be trained in the new software. Okay, that's our new sentence. And now let's make a why question with this passive voice sentence. John had to be trained. How will you make a why question? Why did John, why did he have to be trained? Why did he have to be trained in the new software? Okay, well, what will happen if John isn't trained in the new software? What are we worried about? What are we afraid of? He fails at his job. Okay, so we can put that word lest in front, and that means, oh, we don't want this to happen. Lest he fail at his job. That's what we're afraid of, that he fails. Lest he fail at his job. Now, notice I'm saying fail and not fails, and that's because with lest, you have to use the simple form of the verb, the subjunctive form of the verb. Lest he fail, not lest he fails. Some native speakers will say lest he fails, but it's wrong, and you shouldn't do that. You should say lest he fail, simple form. It's like to fail, but with no to. So he had to be trained in the new software lest he fail at his job, meaning, oh, we don't want this to happen. We don't want him to fail. This is advanced. This is an advanced word, lest. Now, let's see. Let's try another example with a more obvious subjunctive form. Okay, here is a situation. Lisa had to hand in, that's a phrasal verb. It means like give her report. Lisa had to hand in her report on Friday. Now, let's change this from an active voice sentence to a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on the report. The report needed to be handed in on Friday. Give. Hand in is like give. The report needed to be handed in on Friday. How will you make a why question with this sentence? The report needed to be handed in on Friday. Why? Why did the report? Why did the report need? Why did the report need to be? Why did the report need to be handed in on Friday? Why did the report need to be handed in on Friday? Now, the thing that we are afraid of is if she doesn't give the report, if she doesn't hand in the report on Friday, she is fired. That's the thing that we worry about. That is the thing that we are afraid of. She is fired. Lest she is fired. Now, some native speakers will say that, lest she is fired. But really, we should use the simple form of the verb. The verb to be with no to. Lest she be. Lest she be fired. Lest she be fired. The report needed to be handed in by Friday, lest she be fired. That's the thing that we worry about, the thing that we are afraid of. The report needed to be handed in on Friday, lest she be tired. All right, let's move on to our next vocabulary word, and that is the verb to crave. To crave. Again, this is a vocabulary word that I have chosen from Chapter 7 of David Copperfield. It is an intermediate level vocabulary word, And the word is crave, which means that you want something very strongly. You desire something very strongly. It's frequently used when talking about food, but it can be used in other situations too, when something is strongly desired. Here is a situation. Let's practice using it. Lisa invited John out for pizza. Okay, now here's a sentence. You are inviting me out for pizza. You are inviting me out for pizza. How will you make this into a question? Why? With why? Why? Why are you? Why are you inviting me? Why are you inviting me out for pizza? Now let's change this to reported speech. He asked her. Okay, now the question is, why are you inviting me? How will you change this to reported speech? We will have to undo the question form. The question form is, why are you inviting me? But we don't have a question anymore, so it's why you are inviting me. He asked her, why you are inviting me. Or let's change it to she. He asked her why she is inviting me. He asked her why she is inviting me. Okay, but because it's reported speech, let's change is to was. Why was she inviting me? He asked her why she was. He asked her why she was inviting me. He asked her why she was inviting me out for pizza. This is how she answered. After 3 weeks of dieting, I strongly desire to eat pizza. So imagine that if you've ever dieted, then you start thinking about the food that you really love and you become a little bit obsessed with it and you think, when I'm finished, I'm going to have some pizza. This is a craving. So you can say, she said she was craving pizza. After 3 weeks of dieting, I crave pizza. I want pizza very badly, very strongly. I want pizza. I crave pizza. Now let's change this to reported speech. She said that after 3 weeks of dieting, she craved pizza. She said that after 3 weeks of dieting, she craved pizza. Okay, let's try another example. Here is a situation. Little Johnny was making a lot of noise and causing a lot of problems. Now, let's make a sentence with this situation. You are making a lot of noise. How will you make a why question with that sentence? You are making a lot of noise. Why? Why are you making? Why are you making a lot of? Why are you making a lot of? Why are you making a lot of noise? Why are you making a lot of noise? Why are you making a lot of noise? Okay, now let's change this to a reported speech question. She asked him. Now we have the direct question. Why is he? Why is he making noise? Now we have to change this back into a statement. Why he is. Because it's not a question anymore. She asked him why he is. She asked him why he is making a lot of noise. And because it's reported speech, we should probably change is to was. She asked him why he was making a lot of noise. She asked him why he was making a lot of noise. Okay, and let's see. What is our answer? He answered, this is a little boy, because I really strongly desire attention. Of course, a little boy won't say that, but you understand the situation. I really strongly desire attention. Instead of saying strongly desire attention, we can say crave. I crave attention. That's a very strong desire, a very strong want. Because I crave attention. Uh, Now let's change this to reported speech. Let's say he said. He said he craved. He said he craved attention. He said he craved attention. Okay. Let's see. Let's move on to our next expression here. We have, again, this is an expression that we found in Chapter 7 of David Copperfield when we read it the other day. And this expression is, my blood rises. And this means to become angry. Think about blood pressure. Your blood pressure rises when you become angry. And this is a common expression. It means you become excited in a very bad way, usually because of anger. All right, let's try an example using blood rising to mean becoming angry. Here is a sentence. A man insulted Mike. Now let's change this from an active voice sentence to a passive voice sentence. A man insulted Mike. How will you change? Let's focus on Mike and not the man. Let's change this to passive voice. Mike was insulted. He was insulted. Okay, now let's make a what happened when question. So we have he was insulted. Now let's make a what happened when question with that idea. What happened? What happened when he? What happened when he? What happened when he was? What happened when he was insulted? What happened when he was insulted? And the answer is, he became very angry. Okay. There's nothing wrong with this sentence, but an alternative way to say this would be his blood rose. His blood rose when he was insulted. His blood rose when he was insulted. And that just means he became very angry, very excited, very agitated when he was insulted. Let's try another situation. Here's a new situation. Mary's boss did not promote her. Now, let's change this from an active voice sentence, focusing on the boss, to a passive voice sentence, focusing on Mary. She was not, she wasn't promoted. She wasn't promoted. Now, let's make a what happened when question with this sentence. What happened? What happened when she? What happened when she wasn't? What happened when she wasn't promoted? And the answer is, she became very angry. Now, what can you say instead of saying she became very angry? How would you say blood rise? Her blood rose. Her blood rose when she wasn't promoted, meaning she got very angry, very excited, very unhappy about this situation. Imagine the rising blood pressure. Her blood rose when she wasn't promoted. Okay, let's move on to the next vocabulary word. And that is mischief. Mischief. Mischief is a type of trouble, but it isn't serious trouble. It's more like fun trouble or funny trouble. Mischief is very frequently used when talking about children because children enjoy making adults angry. It's fun to them. Usually it's not, they don't do anything terrible or horrible, but they enjoy making people angry. So that's mischief. Let's see how we can use it in a sentence. Here is a situation. The cat broke the vase. The cat broke the vase. Now, cats enjoy causing trouble. At least that's my opinion. That's how I remember my cat used to enjoy making people angry or causing trouble. And they don't care if you get angry. They think it's funny if you get angry with them. So if we wanted to say that this is a cat who seems to enjoy causing or making trouble, we can say it's a mischievous cat. So mischief is a noun. I guess I should put the word mischievous up here because it's spelled a little bit differently. Just a second here. Let me write this. Mischievous. Let's see. Did I spell it right? Mischievous. Okay. So here's mischievous. This is the adjective form of mischief. So a mischievous cat. Mischievous cat. If we say the cat is mischievous, that means it's a cat who really enjoys causing trouble. Fabian Perez is asking, is it like implore? Fabian, is what like implore? Mischievous, no. So if you're asking about mischievous, no. Implore kind of means like beg, if you know that word. It means ask in a very strong way. Okay, let's see. The mischievous cat broke the vase. The cat who enjoys trouble, who has fun making trouble, broke the vase. The mischievous cat broke the vase. Let's change this into a passive voice sentence. The vase was broken. The vase was broken. The vase was broken by the mischievous cat. Let's make a when question with that sentence. When was the vase broken? When was the vase broken by the mischievous cat? When was the vase broken by the mischievous cat? And let's see. The answer is this morning. So the vase was broken. The vase was broken by. The vase was broken by the mischievous cat. The vase was broken by the mischievous cat this morning. Okay, let's try another example using mischief. Little Johnny broke Lisa's window. So imagine little Johnny is throwing a ball outside and the ball breaks Lisa's window. How will you make this into a passive voice sentence? Little Johnny broke Lisa's window. So we want to focus on Lisa's window and not little Johnny. Lisa's window, her window was broken. Her window was broken by little Johnny. Now, let's make a how Lisa knew question. How Lisa knew window was broken by Johnny. How did Lisa know? How did she know? How did she know? How did she know her window was broken? How did she know her window was broken? How did she know her? How did she know her window was broken? How did she know that her? How did she know that her window was broken by little Johnny? And here's the answer. Because of his smile. Okay, but this was the smile of trouble. It wasn't the happy, joking smile. This was the evil smile, like I enjoy doing bad things. Because of his mischievous smile. She knew that her window was broken by little Johnny because of his mischievous smile. Because of his mischievous smile. She knew that her window was broken by little Johnny because of his mischievous smile. Okay. Now let's move on to our next vocabulary word, which is morbid. Okay. Now this word morbid, oh wait, we have to get rid of the mischievous girl. Okay. This word morbid, again, this is another vocabulary word that I have chosen from Chapter 7 of David Copperfield. It's an intermediate level word. It's an intermediate level English vocabulary word. And morbid is something associated with blood or violence or things like that. Things that are very unpleasant, like death and violence and blood. And It's usually used in connection with people who are very fascinated by this sort of thing. So let's see how we can use it in a sentence, so maybe it will be more clear. Okay, here is a situation. John likes to watch documentaries or movies. John likes to watch movies about serial killers. Okay, so about murder. He likes to watch movies about murderers. Okay, some people really hate that. Well, it doesn't mean that John is a bad person that he likes to watch this, but it does make some people feel uncomfortable that he has an interest in blood and death and violence. It doesn't mean that he enjoys it, but he has this weird curiosity over it. Okay, so let's make a question. Let's make a why you like movies about serial killers question. Why? Why do you like to watch movies? Why do you like to watch movies about serial killers? Let's change this to a reported speech sentence. Mary asked John. So we have let's say why does he like? Why does he like to watch? Why does he like to watch? That's a direct question. Why does he like to watch? Let's make a reported speech question. We have to undo the question form. Why he likes to. Why he likes to watch. She asked him why he likes to watch. She asked him why he likes to watch movies about serial killers. Okay. And the answer that he gave was that, let's see, let me find the answer here. Just a second, I've lost my place. Okay, this is how he answered. He has a weird curiosity about seeing these things. He has a weird fascination with it. It's not that he enjoys murder or blood or anything. Maybe he does a little bit, but the idea is it's just something he can't prevent. He likes to see it. It interests him in a weird way. That weird way is morbid. That's what morbid means. So we can say he has a morbid curiosity. He has a morbid curiosity about serial killers. So let's change that to reported speech. He said he had a morbid curiosity. He said he had a morbid curiosity about serial killers. Let's try another example, which is actually pretty common. There was a traffic jam on the freeway. That's our situation. The reason for the traffic jam was because there was a horrible car accident. Let's make a how car accident caused traffic jam question. How did the car accident cause? How did the car accident cause a? How did the car accident cause a? How did the car accident cause a traffic jam? Okay, now let's make this into reported speech. Mary asked Lisa. She asked her. Now, the question form is, how did the car accident cause? That's the question form. We don't have a question anymore. We have a statement. How the accident caused. She asked her how the accident caused a traffic jam. How the accident caused a traffic jam. She asked her how the accident caused a traffic jam. And because cause is in the past, we have to change this to past perfect. She asked her how the accident had caused a traffic jam. And this is how Lisa answered. Because all of the cars, as they passed the car accident, they slowed down because they wanted to see what happened. They wanted to see the wrecked car or the bodies or the blood. And most people do this. There's a word for it. We call it gapers. I can't remember what it's called now, but gaper is somebody who likes to watch things. That's what happens. You know, have you ever been in that situation where there's a car accident and it's not blocking the road, but as people drive by, they slow down because they want to look and see what happened, hoping in a way to see blood or something like that. You know, that's morbid. That's a morbid thing. It doesn't mean these people are bad or they're murderers or something like that. They just have this weird fascination with wanting to see this. They don't enjoy it, of course, but it's something you can't help. They have a morbid fascination with disaster. So that, let me just fix my camera here. Out of focus for some reason. Okay, now I'm okay. All right, so having a morbid fascination with violence or blood, that means you have this weird curiosity, a little bit strange, a little bit hard to explain. Okay, let's see. Let's move on to our next vocabulary word here, which is to eye something. Now, again, this is a phrase that I have taken from Chapter 7 of David Copperfield, which I read the other day, and we talked about it already a little bit, but now we're going to practice using this verb to eye something in a sentence to see how it's different from look. Because to eye something is like watching something or looking at something, but there's a difference. You eye something because you're waiting to see what will happen, or you have some goal in mind. So if you are eyeing a person, you might be watching that person because you think they're going to do something or act in a certain way. Let's see how we can use this in a sentence. To eye something is to watch something for a purpose or because you have a goal. Here's a situation. Every time Mary passes a store, she sees a shirt in the window that she really likes. So she always stops and she notices it in the window and she looks at it and she thinks about it. Like, maybe I should buy that. Maybe I should buy that shirt. In this case, you could say she's eyeing the shirt because she's looking at it, thinking about, oh, maybe that's the right shirt for me. Maybe I should buy that shirt. She has a goal in mind when we say she eyes the shirt. Let's make a when question with she eyes the shirt. When does she? When does she eye the shirt? Eye. When does she eye the shirt? When does she look at it and think about doing something with it? And the answer is whenever she passes the store. She eyes the shirt whenever she passes the store. She stops and she looks at it and she thinks, maybe I'll buy that. She has a goal in mind. She's looking at it for a reason. Let's try another example. A suspicious-looking man enters a store. The store owner is worried that maybe the man will steal something. Maybe he will take something. So the store owner watches the man very carefully as he walks around the store. Okay, we can say the store owner eyes the man because he's looking at him, waiting to see what he does. He's not just watching him, he's looking at him because he thinks he's going to do something. So he's eyeing the man. He's eyeing the suspicious man. So let's make this sentence. The store owner eyed the suspicious man. The store owner eyed the suspicious man. Okay, that means he was watching him, waiting for him to do something, thinking he was going to do something. Now let's make a when question with that sentence. The owner eyed the suspicious man. When did the owner eye? When did the owner eye the suspicious man? And here's the answer. When he entered the store. I'm not very creative with this. I don't know what to say. So we'll say when he entered the store. The store owner eyed the suspicious man when he entered the store. He watched him, waiting for him to do something. He thought he was going to do something. He eyed the suspicious man. All right, let's move on to our next vocabulary word here, which is drowsy. Again, this is an intermediate level vocabulary word that I have chosen from chapter 7 of David Copperfield. I read that chapter to you the other day, and we mentioned very briefly this word and talked about it. Now let's practice how to use it. This is an adjective, and it is used to talk about the feeling of wanting to fall asleep. So when you get to that state, when you're almost sleeping, your eyes are closing a little bit, you could say, I feel tired. But when you feel tired, that doesn't mean you want to sleep. When you say, I feel drowsy, that means I feel like I want to go to sleep. I feel sleepy. Sleepy is probably the best synonym for drowsy. Let's see how we can use it in a sentence. Here is a sentence. Lucy turned off the TV. Lucy turned off the TV. Let's change this from an active voice sentence to a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on the TV and not Lucy. The TV was turned off. The TV was turned off. Now, let's make a when question with this sentence. The TV was turned off. When was the TV? When was the TV turned off? When was the TV turned off? And here's the answer. When Lucy felt very tired and thought maybe she would fall asleep in any moment. So instead of saying that, we can say when Lucy felt drowsy. When Lucy felt drowsy. When she felt like she was beginning to fall asleep. She turned off the TV when she felt drowsy. She turned off the TV when she felt drowsy. Let's try another example illustrating how to use drowsy, which means feel so tired that you're going to go to sleep. Don't drive when you're drowsy, by the way. Mike refused his friend's invitation to go out. So his friends invited him to go out and have fun. Mike said no. Mike refused his friend's invitation to go out. How would you make a passive voice sentence with that phrase? How will you focus on the invitation and not Mike? His friend's invitation to go out. His friend's invitation to go out was refused. His friend's invitation to go out was refused. Let's make a when question with this sentence. When was his friend's invitation? When was his friend's invitation? When was his friend's invitation to go out? When was his friend's invitation to go out refused? And the answer is when Mike felt very tired, like maybe he would fall asleep. He was so tired. Let's say Mike felt drowsy. When Mike felt drowsy. I'm getting drowsy. When Mike felt drowsy, his friend's invitation to go out was refused. His friend's invitation to go out was refused when he felt drowsy. When he felt drowsy. His friend's invitation to go out was refused when he felt drowsy. All right, let's move on to our next vocabulary word. We have the word bold. Again, this is an intermediate level English vocabulary word that I have chosen from my reading of chapter 7 of David Copperfield. And this adjective means brave, or something that is easy to see, easy to notice. You probably have seen this word when you're typing. You have that option to press the word bold and make your letters big. And that means easy to see, not afraid. It really means brave. Bold means brave. Let's use it in a sentence to see how it works. Here is a situation. There is a company losing a lot of business, and during the meeting, someone insists that the company must make very brave actions. The company must take very brave actions to make more money. Now, instead of brave, probably you would use the word bold here. Take bold actions. Don't be afraid. Do something brave. Take bold steps. The company must take bold steps. Let's change this to the past. The company took bold steps to make money. The company took bold steps to make money. Let's change this to a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on the bold steps. Bold steps were taken. Bold steps were taken to make money. Now let's make a when question with this sentence. When were bold steps? When were bold steps taken? When were bold steps taken to make money? When were bold steps taken to make money? And the answer is during the recession. During the recession, bold steps were taken. During the recession, bold steps were taken to make money. Okay, let's try another example using the word bold. Here is a situation. The investor was making risky and brave investments. Let's use bold instead of risky and brave. The investor was making bold investments. In the context of investments, we can understand that bold means risky. The investor made bold investments. Now let's change this to a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on the bold investments and not on who is doing it. Bold investments were taken. Bold investments were made. Let's make a why question with that sentence. Bold investments were made. Why? Why were bold investments? Why were bold investments made? Why were bold investments made? And let's answer because the investor likes excitement. Because the investor likes excitement. Bold investments were made. Bold investments were made because. Bold investments were made because the investor. Bold investments were made because the investor likes excitement. All right, let's move on to our next vocabulary word here, which is to go over something. This is a phrasal verb. And again, this is a phrasal verb that I took from Chapter 7. I read Chapter 7 to you the other day of David Copperfield. And this is one of the words that we talked about while we read that chapter. So let's practice this phrasal verb, go over, which means to examine something, to look at something closely and carefully. Let's practice using it in some sentences. Here is a situation. Before John signed the contract, he examined it very carefully. He read it very carefully. Instead of saying he read it very carefully, we can just say go over. Before signing the contract, he went over it. Before signing the contract, he went over it. Now, let's say before signing it, he went over it. Before signing it, he went over it. Let's change this to a passive voice sentence. So instead of focusing on he, let's focus on the contract. The contract was gone over. The contract was gone over. Now let's make a why question with this sentence. Why? Why was the contract? Why was the contract gone over? Why was the contract gone over before signing it? Why was the contract gone over before signing it? And here is the answer. To make sure all of the details were correct. To make sure all of the details were correct. The contract was gone over. The contract was gone over before signing it. The contract was gone over before signing it to make sure. The contract was gone over before signing it to make sure all of the details were correct. Oh, that's a pretty long sentence. Okay, let's try another example of using go over, meaning examine something. Look at something carefully. Here's another situation. Mike is buying an old car. He wants to be sure that it is in good working order before he buys it. So he examines the car very carefully. He opens the hood and he checks the engine and all of the connections and all of the things you might want to check before buying a car. Instead of saying that he examined the car carefully, we can use go over. He went over. He went over the car. He went over the car before buying it. He went over the car before buying it. Now let's change this into a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on the car instead of he. The car was gone over. The car was gone over before. The car was gone over before buying it. Now let's make a why question with that sentence. The car was gone over before buying it. Why? Why was the car? Why was the car gone over? Why was the car gone over before? Why was the car gone over before buying it? Let me find the answer. To make sure there were no major problems. That's the answer. To make sure there were no major problems. The car was gone over. The car was gone over before buying it. The car was gone over before buying it to make sure there were no major problems. All right, let's move on to our next vocabulary word. This is a phrase. Again, this is a phrase that we found in Chapter 7 of David Copperfield, which I read to you the other day. And we talked a little bit about this phrase the other day, but now let's practice using it. This phrase is to be out of spirits. And this means to feel depressed or to feel sad, some kind of negative emotion. Let's see how we can use it in a sentence. Here is a situation. Mary read an email. Mary read an email. And after she read the email, she was very depressed and very sad. Instead of saying she was depressed and sad, we can say she was out of spirits. She was out of spirits, and that means sad or depressed, unhappy, something like that. So let's take this sentence, she read the email. She read the email, and let's make a passive voice sentence with that phrase. The email was read. The email was read. After the email was read, she was out of spirits. That's our sentence. After the email was read, she was out of spirits. Now let's make a why question with this idea. Why was she Why was she out of spirits? Why was she out of spirits after she read the email? Why was she out of spirits after she read the email? Okay, and let's see, where's the answer? Because the email contained bad news. Because it contained bad news. She was out of spirits after she read the email because it contained bad news. Because it contained bad news. Because it contained bad news. She was out of spirits after she read the email because it contained bad news. Okay, let's try another example of using out of spirits, meaning sad, unhappy, depressed. Here is a situation. The client canceled their contract. The client canceled their contract. And after this made John sad. It made him depressed. It made him unhappy. Let's say this put John out of spirits. This put John out of spirits. Now, let's change the client canceled their contract to a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on the contract and not the client. The contract was canceled. The contract was canceled. The contract was canceled, and this put John out of spirits. Let's make a when John put out of spirits question. When was John? When was he? When was he put out of spirits? And here's, that I changed that to passive voice and I didn't even notice it. I said, this put John out of spirits. How would you change that to passive voice? This put John out of spirits. Focusing on John and not this. John was put. John was put out of. John was put out of spirits. Now let's make a when question with John was put out of spirits. When was he? When was he? When was he put? When was he put out of spirits? And the answer is when their contract was canceled. It's a double passive voice. He was put out of spirits when their contract was canceled. Okay. Now let's move on to our next vocabulary word, which is unflinching. Now, in the previous chapter, in chapter 6, we talked about the verb to flinch, and we practice it. I have a practice video, if you want to find it, among all the videos that I've made recently using flinch. And flinch is this movement. So if something is coming towards you and you're afraid or you want to protect yourself, this is flinching. It's like a hesitation. Flinch kind of means hesitate. So unflinching, which is a vocabulary word from chapter 7 of David Copperfield that we read the other day, is the opposite. It means not hesitating. It means like brave. So because if something is coming at you and you do this instead of this, that's unflinching. It's the opposite. You are not afraid. You don't hesitate. And that's how we use unflinching. So let's see how we can use that in a sentence. Let's practice using unflinching, which means don't hesitate, not afraid. All right, let's see. Here's a situation. The organization gave a journalist an award. Okay, now let's make a passive voice sentence with that situation. The organization gave a journalist an award. So in other words, let's focus on the journalist and not the organization. The journalist was given an award. The journalist was given an award. Now let's make a why question with that sentence. Why was the journalist given an award? Now here's the answer. Because of her honesty. The journalist was given an award because of her honesty. Now let's take that word unflinching and put it in front of the word honesty. Unflinching honesty. Remember, flinching is this. And so unflinching honesty means not afraid honesty. Not hesitating honesty. She didn't hesitate to tell the truth. She told the truth and she wasn't afraid. She was given an award because of her unflinching honesty. She was given an award because of her unflinching honesty. That's a pretty fancy word. So if you're taking an English test, that's a great word to use. Unafraid, not hesitating. All right, let's try another example. Here is a situation. John really loves his dog. Okay, so John loves his dog. Let's make a passive voice sentence with that phrase. In other words, let's focus on the dog and not John. The dog is loved. The dog is loved. Now let's make a why question. Why is the dog loved? Why is the dog loved? Now let's say the reason is because of his loyalty. The dog is loved because of his loyalty. Okay, but now let's put the word unflinching in front of loyalty. Remember, this is flinch. Oh no, I'm afraid. And so unflinching means I'm not afraid. I'll do anything. So this is a very special kind of loyalty that dogs have because they will do anything for their person, usually, if they have a good relationship. So we can say his dog is loved because of his unflinching loyalty. His loyalty never does this. It never hesitates. It's always there. It's always ready. All right. Let's move on to our next vocabulary word, which is drudgery. Okay, again, this is an intermediate level vocabulary word, and I have chosen this from chapter 7 of David Copperfield, which I read to you the other day. And this adjective, yes, it's an adjective here. This adjective is something boring, something tedious, something that is repetitive that you do all the time and you hate it. That's what drudgery is. So usually you use drudgery to talk about the things you do every day that you hate, that you don't like. Maybe mopping the floor or cleaning the house or washing your car or your laundry. Things you have to do, but you don't want to do them. You don't like it. That's drudgery. So it's something you do all the time and something that's boring that you really don't like. So let's practice using this in a sentence. Here is a situation. Lucy needs a vacation. Lucy needs a vacation. Let's change this into a passive voice sentence. In other words, let's focus on vacation and not Lucy. A vacation is needed. A vacation is needed. Now let's make a why question. Why? Why is a vacation needed? Why is a vacation needed? Why is a vacation needed? And here's the answer. To escape the boring everyday routine of life. Okay, so that could be driving to work. It could mean getting coffee in the morning. Any boring thing that maybe you don't like to do, but you do it every day or all of the time. A vacation is needed to escape the daily boring routine. Okay, now we could be very fancy about this, and we can say, and this sounds very fancy and high level. This is bringing your English up a level. To escape the drudgery of life. To escape the drudgery of life. A vacation is needed to escape the drudgery of life. And that drudgery means all those things you do every day that you hate. A vacation is needed to escape the drudgery of life. Let's try another example. Okay, John is in the office, but he volunteered to go out and visit some clients. So John, let's use this sentence. John visited clients. John visited clients. Now let's make a passive voice sentence with John visited clients. Clients were visited. Clients were visited. Now let's make a why question with that sentence. Why? Why were clients visited? Why were clients visited? And here's the answer. John wanted to escape the boring routine in the office. Answering phones, walking from desk to desk, talking to people in the office he doesn't like. Okay, these are things he does every day, but he hates it. So we can say to escape the drudgery of the office. Clients were visited to escape the drudgery of the office. And drudgery are those everyday things that you do that you hate, that you don't like. Clients were visited to escape the drudgery of the office. All right, let's move on to our next vocabulary word, which is to wind up. Now we have to be careful here because wind up is a phrasal verb, and many phrasal verbs have several different definitions. So when you see a phrasal verb that you think you know, it's possible that it's being used in a different way. So in this situation, wind up means finish. It's a common phrasal verb that means other things too, but here we're going to talk about it meaning finish. And again, this is from chapter 7 of David Copperfield. I read that chapter the other day in a video, and I chose to focus on this word as with the other words in this video. And so let's use wind up meaning to finish or begin to finish something. Here is a situation. John wanted to finish the meeting. Now, instead of saying John wanted to finish the meeting, which is fine, we can use wind up. John wanted to wind up the meeting, meaning he wanted to start it ending. By the way, this video is winding up. We only have one more. So this is like the beginning of the end of the video. So John wanted to wind up the meeting, and it means something similar to John wanted to finish the meeting. So let's say John wound up the meeting. That's our sentence. John wound up the meeting. Now let's change this to a passive voice construction. So we have John wound up the meeting. Let's change the focus to the meeting. The meeting was wound up. Wind is an irregular verb, and the past and past participle are wound. The meeting was wound up. Now let's make a how question with that sentence. How? How was the meeting wound up? How did they finish the meeting? Now, when somebody asks you a how question, one of the ways that you probably would want to answer is by using the preposition by plus an ing verb. So, and that will explain the process or explain how. So, how was the meeting wound up? Let's answer with by taking questions. So at the end of the meeting, he said, okay, if you have questions, ask me the questions and then we can finish. So the meeting was wound up by taking questions. The meeting was wound up by taking questions. Let's try another example using wind up, meaning to finish. Here is another situation. It was a very long day at work. Everybody was working hard, and they managed to finish the project. But before they would call the project finished, they wanted to review all of the details to be absolutely sure there were no mistakes or problems. So the very final stage of finishing the project was checking everything. Let's take the sentence, they finished the project, and let's use wind up instead. What is the past of wind? It's irregular. Wound. They wound up. They wound up the project. They wound up the project. Now, let's make that into a passive voice sentence. Let's focus on the project and not they. The project was wound up. The project was wound up. Now let's ask a how question. How was the project wound up? Again, let's answer this how question with the preposition by plus an ing verb, by checking, by double checking all of the information. The project was wound up by double checking all of the information. All right. Oh, we are on our last vocabulary word for today, and that word is jumble. Jumble, again, is a vocabulary word, intermediate level, that I have taken from my reading of Chapter 7 of David Copperfield. And this intermediate level vocabulary word means confusing because it's all mixed up. Everything is mixed up, so it's very confusing. Let's see how we can use this in a sentence. Here's a situation. Lisa was invited to a weekend in a cabin. So she's going on a weekend somewhere. Now she was in a hurry to leave her apartment. We can say Lisa packed her bag. And that's a perfectly fine sentence. But if we want to make it sound like she was in a hurry and she didn't care if it looked nice, she just threw everything in there, her clothes, her cleaning products, her shoes, everything very disorganized and ugly, we can say she jumbled her items into the bag. So let's see. She jumbled her items into the bag. Let's change this into a passive voice sentence. Her items were jumbled. Her items were jumbled into a bag. Now that we say it this way, her items were jumbled into a bag, we can imagine it's very confusing and ugly looking, and we don't know what's in there. There are many different things, and it's confusing. Her items were jumbled into a bag. Now let's make a when question with that sentence. When were her items jumbled? When were her items jumbled into a bag? And the answer is right before she left. Her items were jumbled into a bag right before she left. She threw them in there. She didn't care how it looked. It looked ugly. It looked confusing. Let's try jumble with another example. Here's a situation. The restaurant was very busy, and the cashier was confused. When John went to pay for his bill, she charged the wrong amount. She gave him the wrong bill. The reason she gave him the wrong bill was because there were many bills, and she got confused. She wasn't sure which one was his. There were too many things, and she was very confused. We can say she jumbled the bills. The cashier jumbled the bills. She made the mistake of taking the wrong one because she got very confused. There were so many of them, and they were disorganized. She jumbled the bills. She jumbled the bill. Let's make a passive voice sentence with that idea. The bills were jumbled. The bills were jumbled. Let's make a when question with this sentence. When were the bills jumbled? When were the bills jumbled? And we can say during the lunch rush hour, because that's when all the bills came, and she got confused. There were so many and they weren't organized. During the lunch rush hour, the bills were jumbled. All right, thank you everybody for watching today and practicing English with me, and I'm so glad that you stayed until the end, and I will be back again very soon, and we will read Chapter 8 of David Copperfield and find more interesting vocabulary words to practice. But until then, goodbye, and I hope you have a nice holiday.